Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire Show, and my guest today is Marie Russel. Marie first came to yoga when she attended an Ashtanga Vinyasa yoga class at its yoga in Columbus, Ohio, while singing to heal from a hip surgery. Shortly after she began practicing yoga, she graduated from Ohio State University and then briefly worked in international public policy in Washington, D.C. In October 2004, Marie followed her heart to San Francisco, where she received her yoga teacher training from Larry Schultz and Kathy Cariffe at It's Yoga San Francisco. Later on, Marie founded It's Yoga International. Through It's Yoga International, Marie continues to carry forward the mission of It's Yoga, to share the love of the practice, and to express, share, and manifest the visions of those involved in the movement. Marie, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank
Thank
you. It's
you.
great to be here.
Most people associate yoga with asanas like posture and movement and don't necessarily follow a specific spiritual practice. So, why in Columbus, when you first went to yoga practice, did you combine the two or you just stayed with the asanas?
My first experience of yoga for me was the first time I really felt quiet. And so I knew it was more than just moving and breathing and exercise because it was a spiritual experience. There was a quietness that happened and there was an intuition. I felt like maybe for the first time I could really hear my inner dialogue and I could distinguish between what was serving and what wasn't. And so I like to tell the story in that first yoga class, I actually heard my inner teacher say to me, "This is so good for you." And it was just so clear that I basically was like, wow, okay, well, this is so good for me. And I kind of looked around and I saw that people were wearing comfortable clothes and no one was wearing shoes and everybody seemed very relaxed. And I thought, wow, this is exactly where I need to be. So yeah, that was kind of what it was for me. I always knew that there was more to it than just the movement, particularly because I was coming. Oh my gosh, please forgive me. Particularly because I was injured and I had physical restrictions. So I couldn't really do all of the things that the teacher was saying to do. So I had to really listen to my body and to be very quiet and just breathe. And I loved that aspect of the yoga. And I still do. I still think that the most potent part of this practice is just to hear yourself breathe and to dedicate a specific amount of time to that. Each day is so empowering.
Yeah, so it's all connecting with our own body, feeling our own body, and trying to discover our physical component, which is the body, in fact.
Totally. Well, that's part of it, isn't it? It's like we're trying to understand what's happening in this life. And yoga is that opportunity to do so because there's that quiet space. And then you can actually start to discern, oh, wow, look at my body. Oh, wow, I didn't even realize my shoulder was aching. Or wow, I didn't realize that I was so nervous or I was so afraid of this conversation I was having this afternoon or whatever it is. And so it really kind of is a mirror for us to look at and to discern what's valuable and what's not valuable, and to work through some of our fears and our discomforts on a physical level, but certainly also on an emotional, mental, and ultimately spiritual level when you get to that place of knowing that you're protected and knowing that it's all good and knowing that you're here to learn. Wow, then all of these doors start to open for you. And so, yeah, I mean, my whole career has been about inviting people to look at yoga from a much broader perspective. Certainly the asanas are powerful. Like last night I had a yoga class that I went to where my husband was teaching, and I was like, wow, my back, like I just knew I'd been sitting in this chair and doing so many like podcasts and things, and I was like, I just need to stretch out my back. But what happened was when I started to actually do that practice of movement and breath, there was a lot of emotional stuff that had been lodged in my back. So it wasn't so much that it was sitting in the chair. That's a part of it, but I think that a lot of us miss that we are these multidimensional beings. So we have a spiritual experience, we have an emotional experience, we have a mental experience, and we have a physical experience. So yoga is great to get us going in the physical, to kind of tap us and broaden our perspectives to see that there's so much happening within our experience that really needs some more attention. I mean, if we're really looking at healing, then we can't just heal at a physical level.
Yes, and I think more people are afraid that they are not going to do that perfect posture and they're going to be out of balance, and people might, smile at the way they stretch. And I think that's, out of the door. They really have to try it at least, and put some feeling and some energy into it before they can reach that perfect stretch.
Yeah. And I think that the perfect stretch is exactly where you are for you right now. And I think that a lot of people get discouraged by yoga because, they might see the teacher or the gymnast next to them or whoever, putting your foot behind your head. But that's not the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga is unity, unity and connection to supreme consciousness. So it really doesn't so much matter what your body can do, although if your body is more comfortable, it's easier for you to sit quietly and to receive guidance and tap into that field of consciousness. But I think a lot of people get stuck in, oh, I'm not flexible. I've heard that, a million times over the years. I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible. Well, that's the purpose of yoga, is to get flexible, to become agile, and that we start by just showing up. So wherever you are is the perfect place to start.
One fact which I didn't mention in the introduction is that when you went to San Francisco, you fell in love with your yoga teacher, Larry. And hopefully this is not a painful memory. How did that relationship help you to develop into the being you are these days?
Yeah, no, it's certainly not painful. It's wonderful to remember that blessing in my life. And it was amazing to be with someone who had been practicing yoga for so long. And I think that that's one of the things that was always so impressive for me, that he had this level of consistency. And it really inspired me to learn about consistency as well, because I think that a lot of us get discouraged along the path. So it's like we're really into yoga for a while, and then we're really into Tai Chi or Qigong or whatever it is. But he had this commitment to yoga, and he could demonstrate for all of us the benefits of that practice. And his energy was so wonderful because, he used to like to say that he got the most kisses of anyone in San Francisco because everyone loved being around him. And the reason that people loved to be around him was because he had cleared so much of his energy. So he was so present. So anytime someone came to him, he could see them. He wasn't so much thinking of all of his problems or his issues, because every day he was committed to sorting that out between him and his creator. Yeah. And so that's really what yoga is too, is about service to others. So I think these days particularly, there's so much projection, and there's so much I have this problem because of you, or I have this problem because of what happened when I was 7, or this relationship that fell apart, or this whatever it is. But that's the lesson of yoga, is to sort that out with you and your creator, your guides, your psychologist, or whoever, your coach. But it's not to be projected onto each other. And I think that that's what Larry really demonstrated. He had this youthfulness and this freedom from suffering that we are all attracted to. And those are the gifts of the yoga practice over time, that you really do sort out, you work out the tendencies of judgment, the tendencies of discomfort and suffering. You learn how to monitor those energies and where to, again, value. If you keep valuing the pain and the discomfort, then you get more pain and discomfort. If you value freedom and joy, then you get more freedom and joy. It actually is that simple. So he was a master. He was fun. Lots of laughter.
Did your spiritual journey take you to different countries, or you just stayed within the limits of USA?
Yeah, no, I haven't been in the USA very much since, my most of my adult life I've spent out of the United States. So now I'm in Mexico, and I actually came here with Larry in 2004. And I fell in love with Mexico. And I actually said back then, oh, someday I want to live here. And who knew that all of the circumstances that were going to happen in the last 17, 18 years that actually brought me to living here. But I've traveled extensively. I've had the pleasure of being with Larry in practicing and teaching in Thailand and Vietnam, all over Europe, through Italy and Spain and the UK, and yeah, all over. Sweden. Sweden is an amazing place. I met my husband now in Sweden. Larry passed away in 2011, so I have a great affinity to Stockholm, and yeah, now being here in Mexico. I haven't traveled a lot in South America, so someday I'd like to check out.
Yeah, interesting. So, most of my guests have experienced plant medicine either in Peru, Mexico, or other South American countries. Did you have that experience with plant medicine while in Mexico or while traveling?
Yeah, I've had my fair share of medicinal ceremonies, and mostly here in Mexico. In the last few years, really kind of diving deeper into the plants. So, yeah, my first experiences with ayahuasca a few years ago, and it was beautiful. It was a lot kinder than I thought it was going to be, and from what I gather, it was just not that strong, that potent of the medicine, apparently. But I had a moment of knowing that I was the air, and I was everything, and yeah, that's very healing. And then also with Bufo alvarez, I don't know if you've heard of the toad medicine. I've had a number of those experiences as well, and they're incredibly healing. Wow, just rapid dissolution of egoic consciousness and immediate integration into universal consciousness, and that experience is so illuminating and so healing and humbling. And I think my first few experiences were much brighter, and then I've had some intense ones as well. And most recently, a year ago, that experience of having just a little bit more of an intense, knowing I was surrounded, having direct communication with ascended masters, Jesus Christ, Mary Magdalene, Saint Germain, like straight up, like, wow, okay, we're in this. And them basically being like, all right, are you ready? Because that level of ascension has to do with knowing great levels of despair and darkness. And I think that a lot of us in the spiritual community are all about love and light, and we kind of want to hide from that as an aspect of our reality, and as an important aspect. Like, evil does exist. And so in that last experience, it was incredible because I knew I was always safe. I knew I was protected by the masters. I knew that God was there for me. I knew it was all about love, but I did know the separation on a level that I had only tapped, without that medicine. And so for me, it was a real inspiration to heal deeper aspects of the separation that from source for myself, but also with those in my community, anyone who would really listen to me. It was like, wow, this is the essence of our one problem, is this problem of our believing we're separate from source, from that supreme consciousness. And so that experience showed me that even in the depths of despair and darkness, I'm still not separate. I'm still safe at home, held by source. And it was really quite amazing, but very, very intense. But that's the point of plants. They're meant to kind of blast you.
So do you think that ayahuasca heal a different portion of who you are, and then the 5-MeO, DMT healed a different component of who you are? Or how do you think they reacted, or the action on your body, on your psyche?
I think that they're different for everybody in that they offer exactly what you need at the right time in your spiritual journey. So, the details of what was working at different times, I'm not sure. And I haven't had that much experience. I know a lot of people that have done, hundreds of ceremonies and so forth. I know that for me, it was just perfect. And I think there's a level of surrender and trust. You know, anytime we get involved in plant medicine, there really needs to be a reverence for the intelligence of the plants and trusting the plants and being in a safe container. So for sure, whatever shaman, whatever leader is hosting the ceremony, I mean, there needs to be a real integrity there. So I think that all of that sets a tone for the perfect experience for each individual that's in that ceremony. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but what really happened, I don't really know. It was amazing. But it requires, I think, again, a level of trust and surrender and knowingness that only love is real. Like, God is real. Yes, there is evil. Yes, there is darkness. And so we need to learn how to face our adversaries, and quote, you know, we need to learn how to face those entities within ourselves so that we can further purge and become more aligned to the truth of who we really are, which is pure light, which is, we are the truth. We've just been infiltrated over eons with all sorts of insanity. And now more than ever, a lot of us have raised our hands and said, okay, I'm going to take this to next level. And that's the plants have a way of doing that. So I'm due for another ceremony. I like to do something once a year. I think my next is going to be combo, which is more about healing the physical and detoxifying the liver and so forth. So we'll see. There's a lot of that here in our community. I mean, it's every week, if you want to do a ceremony, there's something to do. So.
Yes, it's interesting how it goes. How do you cope with the daily emotional ups and downs?
Great question. For me, diet, I think I'm coming to on a whole other level. I've tried, you know, we all have breathing practices. We all have tools, ways of shifting our thinking, ways of working through fears, you know, looking at the fear, learning about it, looking at what actions can be taken. So if there's a discomfort, there's just generally fear. It's either love or fear. So it's actually pretty clear and easy to kind of discern what am I dealing with emotionally right now. So if there is any level of fear, then, you know, working with it, breath, meditation, rest. Nowadays, it's so much more about unplugging, so much more about really just unplugging more and more and more, as much as possible from organized society, from the matrix itself. And for me, shifting my diet to really studying and practicing being a frugivore has like totally changed everything, because it isolated my purest energies so that my discernment, I've used that word a couple of times, is so much more on point. So, you know, frugivore is just basically eating fruits, some vegetables and some seeds, but mostly fruits. And here in Mexico, that's perfect because that's what we have abundance of. And I think that clearing out my physical body has been hugely important. And I shied away from this in my career, really talking about veganism and things like that, just because it's such a sensitive topic and so many people get really triggered around it. But the truth of it is that if we're practicing the 8 limbs, the first is ahimsa. And so we really need to look at nonviolence, not only with our words and our actions and our thoughts, but with what we are ingesting in our bodies. And so the clearer I get in my body, and that's removing literally like pretty much everything and getting super, super refined, has allowed me to take on bigger issues because I'm so much more centered. I know the purest of my energy, and I didn't know my energy even 6 months ago could be this clear. But really, the more that I'm ingesting only light, then that's the fuel, that's the energy that allows you to look at anything that's happening in life and to respond to it from that motherly energy, which is nourishing and nurturing. And so, you know, I have 2 small children so it's like there's always going to be something. There's always a lot of opportunities. We all have opportunities every single day to choose love or fear. But the physical, generally, when we feel fear, it's very physical. It's a feeling and it's a contraction. And the less I am ingesting acid in my body, the less I have that reaction and the more I respond with love and smiles and hugs and kisses and communication and spaciousness. So there's less defensiveness, and it's incredible. And I can really say that, even though I've shied away from it for a number of years, really diving into that aspect has meant all of the difference in terms of how I'm emotionally stabilizing myself. You know, we call it the armor of God. It's like you're literally protected and guided in every single moment of every single day, given that's where your attention and focus is, and you're willing to receive that guidance. It's there. It's right there. It's just we're so often not, we're acidic. We're fighters. We can be very aggressive, and that has to do a lot with what we're putting in our body and what's already there and what needs to be taken out. We need a lot of purification. Just being here on this planet requires every single person to really look at some level of purifying their bodies.
Yeah,
it helps.
And for those who are going through the ordeal you went through with your cancer, I know that you didn't want to take any or go through any chemo or any traditional treatment. What have you tried? What have you done to overcome it?
Oh, everything. I think the most potent practices have been being frugivore. Just stop getting my body alkaline. That's essential. If the body is alkaline, then cancer can't exist. And so the more I'm committed to that and the longer I can go, because it's not always been perfect. It's a transition. It's not like, you know, one day you go from eating what I thought was a quite healthy diet to literally just like, wow, okay, not even, you know, cooked foods or cooked vegan foods, you know. So that diet aspect of it has been huge, because if I look at when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was, you know, drinking wine and eating burgers and just living life, you know, eat, drink, and be merry as a yoga teacher. And this is something that our community really needs to look at. Like I call it burgers, beers, and yoga. And, you know, we don't want to change. We want the yoga to change for us. When the yoga yoga is asking us to literally involve ourselves with the spiritual practice of unity with God. And we cannot go to God with burgers and beers and all of the other things. I hate to say that. I know that that's harsh for people, but I come from a really, a deep understanding of this. Like I created cancer in my body and had to get to a place where that contrast was so clear for me, whereas someone very close to me said, oh, you just need to do all of the things that the doctor said. There's no way you could give up wine. I lived in Northern California. I come from a big wine family. You know, we drink wine. That's what we do. We eat acidic foods. And so she was like, you can't do that. And I went, wow, well, I've got to try, because the alternative, which is toxicating my body even further than it already is, just didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make any sense. It was obvious that I needed to be the one making the changes. So diet is huge. And then I think the second piece of this is really meditation and light frequency, and removing cords, letting go of negative, toxic relationships. Not that I don't have, we're all in relationship always. So if I think of somebody, I'm in a relationship with them, but really working on how I was perceiving relationships and what was important. Was I always pleasing? Was I always believing I wasn't good enough? So I've done a lot of inner work, shadow work, they call it, but also just purification of toxicity in any way, shape, or form: spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. So diet, relationships, lots of healing, lots of rest. And I also really love the Rife machine, which is a light frequency device. And, you know, not many people know about it because Royal Rife was killed for his discovery. They couldn't monetize it. And so that frequency machine is really simple. Like I sleep with it maybe twice a week nowadays. And basically it meets the frequency of the virus or the disease, and it zaps it. So, you know, people that are involved in music, you know, if you have music glasses filled with water and you hit a certain pitch, the water glass breaks. So it's the same kind of philosophy and methodology. And so I know that if I stay consistent with that in my diet, I feel amazing. I've never been healthier. And I have a compass, which is a tumor, to see and to wage, oh, wow, I'm getting way out of bounds, because then I go into inflammation, discomfort, emotionally being unbalanced, and so forth. So it's been a great blessing for me and a great tool to up the level of yoga, which needed to be done. And I think that that's, especially for those of us leading in communities, we've got to take a really hard look at our own practices. And it's not so much did you show up and do the movements every day for an hour. That's easy. The harder stuff is off the mat, is how am I operating off my yoga mat? How am I practicing unity consciousness off my mat? Because that's really where we spend most of our time.
Yeah. It's the intention who counts in the end, and with the intention we can eliminate the disease from our bodies. That's for sure. I watched a couple of interviews with you and Charlie Freak and Sasha Stone. And how does it feel to be part of such community, and why did you join them?
Okay, so this is a great question. Looks like we're going here. How did I get involved? Okay, so like I've been sharing with you, really started to take a deeper look at my practice. And I started to go down the rabbit hole, which I think a lot of us have done in the last year, and many people have been there and had been there for much longer than I have. But I really had a sincere curiosity around what was happening on our planet and what was happening with the virus and all of these things. And so that's really where it started. I was in a teacher training here in Mexico when it all kind of happened. And so there was that question of, oh, do we cancel? How are we? Travels and all of the things. So I think it was actually essential for all of us on this planet to take a deeper look at, wait a second, what's happening here? Instead of just being fed the information and just trusting whatever we heard to be the truth. And so when I started doing that, I was coming to a lot of things that were very, very upsetting and wanting to continue to share in my community. And I was sharing in my community, but I was still very vanilla around a lot of it. I didn't want to upset anybody, didn't want to talk about pedophilia, I didn't want to talk about trafficking, I didn't want to talk about politics, but I have a political inclination. I was always attracted to politics, and I studied conflict resolution, international studies, and all of that when I was in college, and remember being so angered by what I was learning. Like, wait a second here. Like, how is that a democratic country is taking over Iran, for example, and the democratic, leader in the 50s there? Like, I remember waking up to things that were really upsetting about the United States and just about our world in general. And so I started to speak out a little bit more and more and more. And I think the key for my journey was that I wasn't plugged into the mainstream media, and I haven't been for a number of years. So I didn't realize that, there was a lot of energy against. I mean, I knew there was energy against Donald Trump, and I knew there was energy against the Q movement, but I didn't realize the extent of it until I actually said out loud on my platforms, like, hey guys, I think there's something here that we should look at as practitioners of the ancient science of yoga. I think we need to do our due diligence here and at least look at it. Because the more I looked at it, the more I saw there was truth here. And the level of intelligence was so far beyond where I was at. So I knew that I had some learning to do, and I wanted to learn. So people like Charlie Freak that are speaking about, numerology and symbology and trafficking and Donald Trump was very confusing for me and very upsetting at first. But I also knew that I needed to stay the course. And the more I did that, the more my community pushed back and just wanted it to be about love and light, and didn't want me to talk about those things, especially publicly, because then it required them to at least look at it and potentially speak about it. But I believe that's our responsibility. We host teacher training, so people are coming to us for healing. And like we shared in the beginning of this conversation, healing is the healing of our separation. And so we can only go so far without looking at the cause of that separation, which was our insanity of believing that, and then everything that happened since that point on. We're talking millennia. So when I was hearing teachers like, Charlie Creek and Sasha Stone going there, I knew I had to go. And then it really kind of all catapulted in my community saying, you need to step down. This is, unprofessional of you to be speaking out about this. Obviously, Trump is on the wrong side of things. And I was like, well, I've read executive orders against trafficking. So if we look at that issue and only that issue, from my perspective, that's enough. That's enough to have my support. And the bigger question is, why for the last 40 years has no one addressed this issue at that level? We're talking about, leader of the free world. So then you start to go, well, are they protecting something? Are they involved in something? And the yoga practice, if we look at Mula Bandha, itself, if we look at the bandhas, they empower us to go through anything. And so that's where I was taking my community, and they just didn't want to go there. That was the bottom line. They just wanted it to be about the love and light. And on one hand, that's important. We need to hold that line. But I also find that we're bypassing. And if we're not looking at these issues right now, we're supporting them. And it really is that crystal clear for me, that we need to be the grown-ups, and we have a responsibility to the practices of yoga, which have taught us how to empower ourselves, taught us how to clean our bodies, taught us how to connect with supreme consciousness. So we owe it to those that are in the depths and in the dungeons. This is what if we look at the Ascended Master and the figure of Christ, that's what he did. He didn't just hang out with all of his friends. He called all of his friends out. It was like, this is not about the Pharisees and the scribes. You need to lift your consciousness above the Pharisees and the scribes. You need to go heal the lepers. You need to go out there and be a part of this healing. That's what I heard him say. I didn't hear him say, no, it's just about the love and the light. He absolutely did not go in that direction. And he absolutely called everybody out that was not aligned to God and God consciousness and that purification process that we all need to go through. And so it's wonderful, actually, to be in these relationships. I'm not really in a relationship with Sasha Stone. I just had that one conversation with him. I think he's a very articulate man. He has a lot to share. But I'm much more attracted to Charlie Creek family. And I know that he's intense and he can be quite alarming. But every guidance he's ever given me has turned out to be the right guidance in terms of my own spiritual journey, which has ultimately come in letting go of my businesses, like 100%. Okay, it's because it wasn't about that. It was never about making money. It was never about fitting into certifications and all of that. It was about the journey to wholeness and the journey to self. And that is beyond money. And I think that money infiltrating the commerce to yoga has made a very big mess and has inundated the industry in a way that's not recoverable within the industry. I think there needs to be a huge just take out, like I'm out. And so now if people want to study with us or anything like that, then it's by donation. It's what do you want to contribute? Because it can't be about that. It can't be about, okay, I'll heal you, but it costs $5,000. It can't be that anymore. And it was for a long time. And I was absolutely subscribed to that. And now, Larry used to say that the first 10 years of his practice was about achieving. And the second 10 years of his practice was about letting go of everything that he achieved. So then he started again as a beginner. And that's where I'm at 100%. I was about achieving studios, fame, students. I didn't realize how egoic that was at the time. I knew it physically because it always felt uncomfortable, but I was defending it. And when I tapped this information, particularly with Charlie Creek, I love him. I absolutely am 100% subscribed. I love him very much. I love Colleen. I think their work is beautiful. I love Santos Bonacci. I think what they're putting out there is massive and not easy. But when I came to him and said, my business is falling apart, and all I did really was say online, I just don't think everything is a lie. I don't think it's all a conspiracy. That is literally all I said, which got me after 50, we're talking 15 years, some of these relationships of sisterhood and brotherhood that have said to me, and they wouldn't even talk about it with me, which shows me that I was in the right. Like, wow, this is such a trigger for people that they won't even talk about it. And so going to Charlie and Colleen and saying, okay, now what? It was like, you can't charge money for God's work. It was like, oh, okay. Well, then how am I going to support myself? It's like, well, you're going to trust God's going to show up. And I'll tell you what, miracles have occurred that I could have never planned. And that's what's so magical and mystical about this syncretism and the magnetism that we're learning from these teachers, is that what happens when you step into higher and higher dimensions is you repel. Absolutely. You've got to repel, but you're also going to attract. And it has gotten so much easier. Like people like you have come into my life, these beautiful humans that are like, hey, let's have a real conversation here. And you started real. You want to talk about plants. You want to talk about Charlie Creek and Sasha Stone. That's magical to me, because that's what we need to be doing in our communities. We cannot be shying away from these conversations because we're afraid. And that's what I realized, is that me not speaking out was aspects of my shame, was aspects of my fear of retribution and not being willing to walk through the fire. And the minute I did that, I realized it wasn't easy. There were major moments in time where I was really afraid, but all I was eating was drinking was orange juice. Like, I knew I was getting purified on huge levels here. So it was allowing that process to occur, which is an extraction. It is an extraction of you can call them whatever you want, demons, evil entities, bad energy, whatever it is, it's not you. And so it has to go. And in the process of leaving, it can be really alarming and really frightening. But again, it's like my medicine journey. I knew I was held. I knew that this was about, it was about the children, absolutely, but it was about God. And this was about God intervention and God saying, look, it is not okay anymore for the children of God to be behaving like this, so weak, so afraid of this darkness, when they are the ones giving the darkness the power. And that's huge. That's yoga for me. That is overcoming that separation, is knowing it doesn't have power over me anymore. Cancer doesn't have power over me. Food doesn't have power over me. Fear of others not liking me doesn't have power over me anymore, because I know. And there's a Godfidence that happens, not confidence anymore, it's Godfidence. You become so protected. And there's where all the peace and the joy and the love is. It's in that energy field. And so no, I won't give that up for anything anymore. It's been difficult to get it, so I'm not giving it up.
A couple of statements you just made gave me goosebumps, that like the one, you have to be true to yourself and not be afraid of who you are, speak out, doesn't matter the repercussions. And the second one is to really trust God and have faith and let go, surrender. And as you said, God will support you somehow for you to support your family. Yeah. And I am at that moment right now where I was told twice during my ayahuasca ceremonies to, give up my job and let go, because God will provide. But I'm still clinging, a little bit there and not sure what exactly to do and which direction to go. But I'm still asking for more guidance every day, just to be sure that when I make that step is with full confidence, and everyone around me will see that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't 100% confident, but I knew I had to do it. It's a quantum leap. It literally is a leap of faith. And I think it's not about taking thought, of your own mind. It's, our logical mind, that 10% of our ego is really, really attached to being in charge. And the systems in the world that we live in is locking us into that as well. That, oh, well, how will I support myself, and how will that happen? I mean, we got to the place, and I have 2 small children, where we literally had a couple $100 in our bank account and debt, because everybody had pulled out of our teacher training programs for this year. and then wanted their money back. And we were like, oh God, we're really in a pickle jar here. But a miracle occurred when, and I can't even explain how it happened outside, divine intervention. There was no other way. It was like, wow, this person came from left field, wanted to buy part of the business, and it happened. And so then here was this miracle of this little chunk of money. Because if God knows what you need, if you need money, God's going to give you money. But the lesson for me really was a detachment from, I owe all of these people all of this money, because I had a little bit. I needed to own it for myself and for my family, where I had spent so much of my career pleasing everybody and not wanting to be seen as, I was trying to control other people's thoughts and feelings, when the bottom line was that they were the ones that pulled out, and I needed to accept that this gift wasn't about me, penny pinching and getting all freaked out about that. It was literally being like, listen, if $17 million drops in my account, I'm happy to share it. But until that happens, you've left. I'm here. I'm ready to complete the programs. Well, this, that, and I don't trust you. All of that was ego. And that's what it comes down to. You get super, super refined. But it is about not taking the thought of what will people think and how will this play out, and trying to project and control and all of that. It really is a deep level of faith.
Yeah,
and
I did experience a couple of times this type of miracles in my own life, and I truly believe what you're saying, and I'm trying to do my best to explain the same concept and the same principle of letting go and trust to other people, because it's paramount. We are all children of God, and if we believe that He's with us all the time, we will succeed.
Wow, that's beautiful, and it's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah. I want to get into something very touchy these days, and I'm not going to name names. I'm going to just keep it, at a 10,000 feet point of view. We heard a lot about deprogramming the followers of the previous president, and it's like the whole country should think the same. No more diversity of opinion. No more challenging questions for the new administration. And to me, that's very silly, to say the least. So the question is, how do we program our minds from the lies ingrained in us since childhood and then through our adult life?
We need to be willing. We need to be willing for that process to occur, and that it will occur. I think that there's a lot of people that are unwilling, and that's this communist platform. That's what this is. This is trying to break the will of man. And they have been at us since we were in our mother's wombs. They dominate this planet until we take back our power and we're willing to see where we were wrong. And that is allowing, our God self to take the leadership in our reality and telling our egoic consciousness to take a rest. And this energy of like, we can't ask hard questions and we should just go with the flow. And that's very dangerous. That's the danger. Everything is flipped. It's like what Charlie says, like everything you've been taught is a lie. Now, are you ready to hear some truth? That's why people resist him. That's why people resist the truth, because the truth is so altering. And we are dense. That's why getting a hold of your diet, that's why getting a hold of your media, pulling back your power, getting back into nature, unplugging from the matrix, getting out of the cities. These things are very important right now, because it's trying to formulate us into like machines that don't ask questions, that just do. That's unacceptable. We are the children of God. This is our planet. This is our mother. And she wants us to be here, mankind. She's not interested anymore in this demonic system and all of the things in place. And I happen to be one of the believers. I don't think this is done yet. I really don't. I think we're in a dark time. It's really intense. It seems that all hope is gone. But the deeper I go into my own gnosis, into my own practice, and deeper into this community, it's not done. It's giving us an opportunity to step up our game. So the people that are resisting the hard questions and just wanting to just like to get back to normal, sadly, that's never going to happen. It's just going to keep getting harder and harder. And we know this. I want to say this. We have been taught to accept levels of insanity at halftime shows, for example, in the United States. Like last year's halftime show was disgusting. It was unacceptable. And too many people were sitting there watching it with their kids as if that was normal. And it's not. And that's what's hard, is that when you step out of where we like to be in a herd, right? Well, Jesus was the leader of the herd. Like, we need to follow out of this. We need to be able to say no. Let your no mean no, and let your yes mean yes. That's no, that's not acceptable. I don't want my children subscribe to that. And it means that we have to make hard decisions right now. And we're so accustomed to everything being done for us and easy. And it's like, we need to grow up and we need to take control of our lives. What we put in is what we put out. And so if we're putting those questions and those visuals into our reality, and we let our kids watch all this violence, like, that's what's going to come back out. And so this is about becoming singular again in God consciousness. And we need to do the work. That's why it seems so dark right now, because we weren't ready for the magic that is in store for us. And not enough of us are willing to say the hard things and do the hard things. We're still afraid of being liked and ridiculed. I mean, all of that is total craziness. We're not children anymore on a playground. We need to stop being bullied, because that's what's happening. We're being bullied.
Exactly.
We're being bullied, and it's not pretty. But a bully only has power if you're afraid of him.
Yes, and they have to understand that our jurisdiction is a jurisdiction of God. We are living human beings, and we don't obey other human beings just because they put in place certain rules to control us. So they cannot touch us if we are in the jurisdiction of the spiritual realms.
Totally. I don't live by anyone's laws but God's. And it's even getting even more intense. Like, around, it's like a little shop, and it says, you must wear a mask so that everyone feels safe. And I go, well, I don't feel safe. That's a lie. It's a lie. And I'm going to call it a lie. That's a lie. I don't feel safe wearing a mask. I feel afraid. I feel I can't breathe. Breath. You can't live without breath. You can live without food for 30 days. You can live without liquid for 30 days, but you can't live for breath for more than 3 minutes.
Indeed.
People need to sit with that for a second. So what is this really about? Is it about a virus, or is it about control? And I know it's hard. I know it's not easy, but you're at choice here. You get to choose, what kind of, if you want to live in that reality, then you can, but I certainly don't. And many, many people don't. And what I'm starting to see, which is really fun, is people coming out of the woodworks. And now there are people coming down to Mexico, and there's communities starting to come together. And we're like, okay, look, if this is what that's going to be, I don't want to be there anymore. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard. And yeah, it's scary. And I don't know where I'm going to live. And I don't know, but I've done that. I've already done that. So I can say to you guys, I'm already in the future. It's not that hard. It's actually, if the worst case scenario is that you have to live in Mexico and eat fruit for the rest of your life, like, I'm sorry. And go to the beach and sit in the sun and raise your kids in a free environment. Is that so bad? The cities aren't what they were meant to be anymore. Like, they're controlling way too many aspects of our lives. And I don't think it's done yet, but I also don't think we can wait for a savior. I think we are the saviors we've been looking for. And this is about that. It's about us really grounding in, putting our feet on Mother Earth and letting her teach us, and letting our Father guide our steps, and becoming the children we were designed to be. And that comes with humility and willingness. So that's the answer to your question. We need to be willing to see really how dark this thing has gotten. And we need to look at it. And know everyone's like, it's like, no, just look. And it's sad and it's disturbing, but you're healing for all of the planet. And when we heal, we're not healed alone. Yeah. That's the beautiful part of all of this.
Please tell us more about It's Yoga International.
I don't know what's going to happen to It's Yoga International. You know, we started it. Larry passed away in 2011. I love his system. I love the way that he was teaching yoga. It was really about sovereignty. It was really about living a lifestyle. And so now for me, it's shifted from being a business and it's about me living that lifestyle. So I really feel so grateful that the form of it's changing. I still think we're going to host trainings. We're going to take a few months off. We're going to go into a nonprofit entity and receive contributions because we want to build a ranch here for people to come and to heal, to practice yoga, to learn about permaculture, and to learn about different ways of healing as well. You know, the Yoga Alliance in the United States won't allow us to say that yoga is healing. And that was a huge indication for me that this wasn't about, you know, the practices of yoga. It was about a business and it was about saving face. And so if it's about that, I don't want to be about that anymore because I can see that there's a fine line. It's either love or fear. And all of those are about fear. And so It's Yoga International isn't going to be about that anymore. And I have the next 10 years to sort out what that looks like. But it is about community and it is about welcoming people here to the sacred lands here in Mexico and Oaxaca and having that spaciousness to heal from this experience, because we all have been programmed and we are all in the process of becoming deprogrammed and reprogrammed to reality, which is love and truth. And that's going to take some time. That's going to take some healing. And people, I want to have those systems in place for people where, you know, your juice is already present for you. The raw food is there for you. So that you can go to different lectures, you can do different practices, and you can have massage, and you can have healing therapies and sound therapies available. And your kids are also in those kinds of programs where their sovereignty is number one. When I send my children to their program, I know they're emotionally safe. That's the most important thing. They're going to learn to read, they're going to learn math, but they're going to learn it through play. Not through dogmatic systems of you sit here and learn this, and I know what you don't know. The issue we have is that we've been programmed since we were children, and now it's about allowing the children to program us because they know. They are looking at us like, wow, you guys are really messed up, you know, and they're not. And so that's a big part of what It's Yoga International is going to be about in the future, is about these safe, sacred containers for families to come and to do this work, and to be supported, because it's you know, we were alone. We've been alone a lot, and that's why I'm so attracted to, you know, Charlie freaking Colleen and Justin and all of my new friends, because we are all aligned, and realize that we are the ones that have to do this, because if we don't, you know, it's being done to us. Those are the choices we have right now. So I'm super excited about the future. I love the idea of being nonprofit. How much is it? Whatever you want. What's real for you? Because healing is God's work, and we are all brothers and sisters in this thing. And this is not about monetizing each other. Oh, I have 10 people in my training. I made $50,000. Oh, yay. I literally, it makes me sick to think about operating that way anymore. And I have a lot of friends that are upset with me about that and doing great in their businesses. And I, you know, too, have been very trained to be like, value yourself. And we have to value the yoga. And if we don't do it, nobody else will. I disagree with that. I value the yoga so much that I'm not going to put a number on it anymore. It's beyond numbers. And that's where we're going with this community. And I think this is absolutely 100% the future. Yeah. I'm super excited to be a leader in this movement because, you know, the yoga studios, when it all falls away, you know, we're going to be here for you, and we're here for you. That's what this is about. It's about supporting each other and loving each other through this, not about judging each other and saying, oh, you went crazy and you're a conspiracy theorist. That's just not true. And it's a lie. And a lie is a lie, and the truth is the truth. And those things are non-negotiable anymore. And that's what's so awesome about having this foundation in the matrix, so that I can be like, okay, well, the last 17 years was about this, and now it's going to be about this. And it's very exciting.
A beautiful initiative. And in fact, I'm going to apply the same model into my coaching business. I will just ask people to donate whatever they think the session is worth. how much I help them or not. And that will be a measurement of my own efficiency when doing this for others. So we'll see how.
Beautiful. You're going to see, you're going to get so free from it because it's a lot of mental energy to, put out these types of programs. And I've been a coach too for the last, number of years. And I had a whole coaching business and online courses and, trying to sell my courses and, getting the funnel together and all of the things. And I was just like, oh my gosh, whew, I'm exhaling. So next 90 days for me are about exhaling. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, like I'm willing to serve, but it's not going to be all about that anymore. It can't be. There's too much at stake right now.
Marie, it's been a wonderful interview. We are approaching the end of it. Any final thoughts?
Just thank you. I want to acknowledge you for your power. And wow, it's so beautiful to see, particularly I'm really attracted to men who are using their voice in a really empowering way. So thank you so much for asking those questions and kind of getting my creative juices going. It's been a real honor to be with you. I hope we stay in touch.
Thank you very much. Namaste to you and to your viewers and your community. And to my viewers, thank you for watching. Share it, like it. As you heard Marie, stay positive. Do your yoga daily or weekly, whenever you have the chance. Learn every day. You can support me at patreon.com/Claudiu Murgan, and you can get a free copy of my first book, The Decadence of Our Souls, if you visit my website. Until next time, love and gratitude.